Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon. This is John Suntress. It's the preamble before the show begins, and I'm always happy to give you some show notes. If you have questions, comments, or requests from me, email john@wordballoon.com. It's the best way to reach me. Not Facebook messages, not Twitter messages. Email john@wordballoon.com. Follow me on Facebook under my name, John Suntress, and the Word Balloon Network. Follow me on Twitter @JohnWordBalloon. I have a YouTube channel that is up and running and has videos, and I would like you to be a part of it as well. Would you mind subscribing? It's free. I should say it's under Word Balloon. So check that out. And as always, thank you for listening to the commercials before the show starts. I know that people get annoyed by commercials, but they do pay the bills and they do make a difference in my bottom line. And the only way I get paid is if you do listen to the spots. So in advance, thank you for listening. There might be one more spot before we get started, and then we'll be underway with the show. But as always, thank you for your attention. Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Very excited to welcome Greg Rucka back. It's time for a new Rucka Debrief. It's been a while. Certainly some big things have happened. Stumptown getting some national consciousness now with the release of the ABC show. We're 6 episodes in. It's fantastic. I think it captures the tone of the comic book in the best possible way. It's an entertaining television show, and I'm digging it, and I'm really excited for him. And I'm very happy to hear that the network, ABC, has committed to the back order of new episodes, so we're going to get a full season of Stumptown. That's great news to hear, and could not be happier for the entire Stumptown crew, but especially Greg, who, hey, this was his idea. It's very Portland-y. I can speak to the experience of going to Portland for the first time back in September and having the opportunity to really spend 5 days and really hitting the streets beyond the convention and really getting into the city and the vibe you get from Portland. It's great. So I'm really happy for him for Stumptown. But of course, there's also Lois Lane. And man, I am telling you, Mike Perkins and Greg are knocking it out of the park with this Lois Lane book. This is exactly the Lois Lane book that we have been begging for. Jesus, even before Word Balloon, I'm like, why isn't there a Lois Lane book out there? She is the greatest character and such a strong human being. She doesn't need superpowers. Man, I'll tell you, was not happy when they gave Lana Lang the superpowers in the Superwoman book and everything. It's like, no, man, Lois and Lana are cool people on their own. And things have changed, and that's good. But, I mean, I'm telling you, Lois, this book is fantastic. It is a great investigative journalism book. It very much is in line with your favorite investigative journalism stories. I mean, Lois is pounding the pavement, and she's got Renee Montoya working for her. There's an entire question interlude with not only Renee, but also Vic Sage, Charlie, his real name. And, how did Vic come back? He was dead. Renee saw him die. What the hell happened? They don't know. It's part of the story. 12-issue maxi series that I'm really enjoying, along with the companion Superman Satellite book as well, Jimmy Olsen, but a very different vibe from Jimmy. But it's the same Lois that Greg wrote in his days writing The Adventures of Superman. I mean, he gets Lois Lane. When Lois Lane speaks, you understand. And it's, I think, a great companion to what Brian is doing. But in a lot of ways, it needs to be its own evergreen book, as Greg explains in our conversation. And I really think he succeeds. It's a terrific book. So we talk about those, Stumptown, Lois Lane, a little bit about Lazarus as well, and also what else is going on with Greg as far as some of his other creator-owned books. The Old Guard as well. Old Guard's going to get the Netflix treatment and be a Netflix movie with Charlize Theron. Greg gives us an update on that and where that stands. So, wonderful opportunity to do a Rucka debrief on today's Word Balloon. All brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you greatly, League, for your support via Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon is the direct page, or you can click on the Patreon ad right on the front page of wordballoon.com. And as I always say, Word Balloon is free, but if you enjoy what I hear here and you want to support the cause, I'm putting a lot more effort in making more Word Balloons every month and giving you more great conversation. And I'm working on some other projects as well, some YouTube stuff and a few other things that as they become more tangible, I will let you know more about them. But it's really because of the great support I get from my patrons, the League of Word Balloon listeners. So if you want to support the cause, go to patreon.com/wordballoon or wordballoon.com and click on the Patreon ad. But thank you greatly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics, and they are having a November to Remember right now with great books. Things like the Animosity Hardcover Volume 2, Year 2 Collection. Marguerite Bennett, Raphael De La Tour, really great stuff. It's a big, nice collection of the second volume, the second year of Animosity. Really neat stuff. Also, Animosity number 25 coming out this month. There's a new collection of Baby Teeth from Donny Cates and Gary Brown, Volume 3. That will be out as well. It collects issues 11 through 15. Great horror story that Donnie is writing there for Aftershock. The Rough Riders Complete Series hardcover from Adam Glass and Pat Olaf. This was a really fun steampunk story that they laid out over 3 story arcs, and it's all in one big edition right now. Check that out. Also check out great books like Wando's Bad Reception and Matthew Klickstein's You Are Obsolete, and Dark Arc from Cullen Bunn and Wando, and of course Dark Red from our buddy Tim Seeley. Great stuff, great books, great interesting ideas. But don't take my word for it. Go to the website, check it out for yourself. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, without further ado, let's get into a brand new Rucka Debrief. And we've got Greg in the interrogation room, and he's going to pull no punches. Great stuff about Stumptown and Lois Lane and the like. Great information from Greg. Here it is now on Word Balloon.
This is the problem with working in my office is I have a mechanical keyboard. I have this thing called a quirky writer. It's the same thing Lois uses.
Okay. Yeah.
I gave it to her very specifically because, this is practically interview material.
I know. That's why. Well, I'm rolling, so we can.
All right. Well, you can cut this in while you like, but you're going to hear me typing, right? Because the quirky writer is designed to look like an old Remington manual keyboard.
Okay.
Even with a return bar.
Fantastic.
And then it's attached. You can attach it with.
Does it literally have like an old fashioned return bar?
Yeah.
Insane.
And it's got rollers, and you hook it up. You can hook it up via USB or Bluetooth. So like when I travel and I know I'm going to do a lot of writing, I'll take that and I'll take like my iPad. So I can just put the iPad in the holder and type on the typewriter keyboard.
God, it would be a pleasure to do that again.
And then rollers, you can change volume and things like that with it, and you can set macros for the return bar if you want, and it is absolutely indulgent. But I don't know a writer who isn't particular, even if they say they're not, about their tools. Because it is part of the process. It's part of how you create your comfort, and it's also part of your procrastination.
100%. Yes, sir.
It's a legit part of the process. So yeah, when we were doing the first issue, and I was really specific. I was like, okay, so this is what Lois works with. All right, because Lois is going to have the equivalent of an iPad. It's going to be something called like a Wayne Tech, 800 or whatnot.
Yeah.
Because it's got to be light. It's not a laptop, right? She's going to go with something even lighter and sleeker because she's got to be able to move with it.
Right.
But if she is in that room and she is working, she has a mechanical keyboard, so she can literally pound the keys. And in issue 1 of Lois Lane, the sound effect that you get across pages 1, 2, and 3, as you are listening to everything playing on the media, and you're hearing this tackety tack tack tacka tacka. I mean, in the script, each one of those tacks and where it goes tacka and when it's a tackety, and so those are very precise. I was like,
that's awesome.
And Simon's first pass on the lettering, he had just gone tack, 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 and then sort of, morphed it and placed it over. And I saw it, and I actually set it back, and I was like, no, I actually want I want a tacketa. I want the tackas. I want.
It's the music. It's the music of the instrument. Absolutely.
It absolutely is, and it's that thing where anybody who types a lot is going to, I would hope, is going to recognize, what's going on there tonally, is that it's not tack, 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 because that's not the rhythm of writing. It's a flurry here and a pause there, and the sound that, and Lois is a touch typist.
Sure.
She doesn't mistype. She misspells.
Right.
You know what I mean?
How many Z's in Brazil? Yes.
Exactly. And how many O's in bludgeon. Those are legit mistakes from her, but it's not because she's hitting the wrong key.
Right.
So you're going to hear occasionally, possibly as I am responding to things that come across my various monitors here as you and I are talking, that yes, that will be the sound of the tack and a tack, tack, tack. So
that's outstanding. And do the keys feel like typewriter keys?
Yeah, no, it's great. I have
like a manual typewriter.
Yeah, I have.
Insane.
I have a laptop, but I don't type on it. It's the keyboard is attached to the laptop, and then I've got a second computer in my office. I've got a desktop, and that one also has a mechanical keyboard made by a company called DAS, D-A-S, DAS keyboard, and it is specifically there because it's a mechanical, so it'll go clickety clickety click.
Sure.
I hate. And I've had discussions, there are plenty of people who love it. I hate the mushy, soft keys on my MacBook Pro. I can't stand typing on it. It's just, it feels gross to me.
Art Baltazar and Franco, because I attack my laptop like it's an old Royal typewriter. And they always say, you type like the Hulk when you... Art Baltazar and Franco always make fun of me when I type, and if I'm typing while we're doing a podcast or something.
I don't know another way to do it. And it's funny, I go through a laptop like once every 3 years, right? I just
pounding the shit out of it.
Well, it's just, it is on. It's almost never turned off, right? The uptime on my machines is pretty much perpetual. They get used aggressively pretty much every day. And I have the last 3, and I'm looking at, like I said, I've got the Quirky Writer here on my desk, and then the laptop's on a stand behind it. So I'm looking at the keyboard on it, and it's still fresh enough, and I still haven't used the actual keyboard on the MacBook enough that the key wear is very slight right now, but on average, it takes me 6 to 8 months to erase the actual symbol, the letters from the S and the H, and to create and to rub away the coating on the space bar where my thumb hits it. But literally, you can pick up a laptop I have used, and consistently the S, and I don't know why when I'm at rest, because it's the left left ring finger.
Sure, I can see it. Yeah, I'm looking at my keyboard. Yeah.
Yeah, so there shouldn't be a lot of pressure coming from that, but for whatever reason, I rub the coating off of that one on every laptop I have. It may be because, it occurs to me that it may be, you're doing Command S to save, and I probably hit that harder than I need to, but literally, it's not that I'll break the keyboard. It's simply that I'll rub away the markings on the keys through repeated use. My mom is, my mom is, I think, got to be early 80s. Okay. Now, I'm really bad with remembering people's ages, including my own. And she's one of these people who gets really cranky if a thing she bought 30 years ago no longer works.
I understand.
and so she's belligerent about technology, right? Because planned obsolescence is is just part of the game.
Right. Sure.
And she don't play that, right? She doesn't want anything to do with that. So, the idea to her of needing to replace a laptop every 6 years, for instance, is alien.
Sure.
And, I'll go down and visit her, and, 90% of her technology, she'll be like, it's no longer working. I'm like, yeah, because it's obsolete. It's become obsolete. I don't know what to tell you, lady.
My aunt, who just passed away last year, 98 years old, had literally a 19, maybe 60s, but maybe even 50s Frigidaire in her basement that still runs.
Yeah.
And her grandson now has it in his basement because it's a great, you wouldn't want a chance to meat in there or anything perishable, but it's perfect for beverages. It's perfect for beer and everything. And the damn thing still runs.
Yes, and I would love that. The problem is we hit stuff and it starts going and then it never stops going. We have, I can't remember the times you've been out here. I don't think you've ever been over to the house.
No, I haven't, man. This was the only, seriously, that was the first time last, September, this past September.
All right. So next time you come out, we'll fix that. But we have the layout of our kitchen to our dining room in this house, where there's a swinging door that is sort of the pathway from kitchen into dining room. And the fridge nook, and the house was built in the late 30s.
Okay.
So the fridge is meant to go where that swinging door is going to swing into.
Uh-huh.
And when our fridge dies, and there's not a lot of room. So we have to look for a specific model that will fit in there.
Sure.
It's got to be small enough to fit. And then and then it has to have French doors, or else nobody can get from one room to the other while it's open. And it's just, it gets, yeah. And now we're talking about fridges, and people are going like, holy fuck.
Yeah, I thought they were going to talk about Lois Lane.
Why are they talking? It's Rucka and Suntress talking about home appliances.
Sorry. Welcome to HGTV. Absolutely.
I was going to say, you don't want to know how many coffee makers I go through, over the course of a year or two.
No, but you've honestly, and you have been one of the people like, John, when are you going to write the damn word balloon book? Go. And honestly, Greg, every time I do try, it is like this, I think, subconscious thing with the keyboard, and that's not excusing me but it is good to know, and I'm totally going to get one of those things because that would absolutely help me. Because when I was in the rhythm of writing, I was writing on manual typewriters. I mean, this is definitely pre-internet when I would literally send in my articles to Boxing Illustrated.
Sending copy,
yeah.
Yep.
So
look, I love it. You can find it online. It is a company. It's called Quirky Writer. They're not super cheap.
Okay.
It's, 100,
200?
It's about 200.
Okay.
But, it is metal, and it is well made, and I have had this one for over a year, and it's fantastic. And who put me onto it? You want to talk about the guy who fetishizes his tools.
Go on.
More than anybody else. It's Fraction.
Oh, that's so funny because I saw Brenda's. Go ahead. I saw Bendis writing, and no, he's on the keyboard. He's on the regular laptop. Go on.
Yeah, no, it was
Fraction.
It was Fraction. It was like, you got to get this thing, and I was like, I don't know, and then he sent me the link, and I was like, I need it. I must have it now.
That's excellent. It doesn't surprise me because I remember when Kel was pregnant with their daughter, and right now, shame on me, I'm blanking on her name. Tallulah, of course. And as a push present, she told me that Matt bought her a little pink portable typewriter that, they found vintage typewriter and everything. So that doesn't surprise me. Yeah,
actually, my understanding is that Kelly Sue hates his Quirky Writer.
Hilarious.
Because it's noisy. She's like, I'm trying to work. And he's like, clackety, clackety, clackety.
This is all good. I love this, man. Jesus Christ. Greg Rucka, welcome back to Word Balloon. This is fantastic. This is how we're starting the podcast. I like it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and now, well, it's been nice talking to you, John. I'll talk to you later.
Exactly. No. Exactly. Jesus, man, so many things to talk about, and we may as well stick with Lois because I think you did see it because you liked it on Instagram. I was so thrilled. And I mean, I do it all the time, but I was on Lakeshore Drive heading to downtown Chicago, and there's the big sign for the Drake Hotel. And it just occurred to me because I was stuck in traffic and it was at a dead stop. I'm like, I can pull out my camera right now. Hold on a second. Let me take a picture of that. And it's perfect. I'm like, yeah, man, I pass the Drake on my way to work every day I'm working in radio. So that's fantastic.
You should stop in and say hi to her.
Well, I said that, yeah. I was like, we're working.
I know, and she would have been like, yeah, come on.
Absolutely.
Have some bourbon.
Hell yeah, and or we'll go to Gino's East like she and John did in issue 4. I mean, honestly, and even where, I mean, we'll get to the story, but these little innocuous scenes, even where Renee and Vic or Charlie meet each other, I live right by that little joint. Yeah. I think that was based on Jerry's Diner, which is right there on Western and Montrose. In my neck of the woods and everything. So
I would have to pull out the script to see what I specified. I know I did some research digging, and Perkins is really careful about picking locations.
Yeah, but I just talked to Mike about that. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants Chicago to be authentic in it. Which I very much appreciate.
Me too. Being here and everything. No, it's fantastic. And yeah, we like Lois being in Chicago. She'll get back to Metropolis eventually, I'm sure, and to stay.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe not in your series.
We're exactly. We're a maxi, right?
Yeah.
We're a maxi series. And when when this all started, Matt and I thought we were writing ongoings, and then DC said, no, it's a 12-issue maxi. Yeah. And each of us sort of had to go, okay, well, that changes what we're doing, and it would have been nice to know that before we started.
Yeah.
But the result of that is that in its own way, then, Lois is very much its own book. And where it touches current continuity and where it doesn't becomes really subjective. And so I don't actually feel obligated in the course of this series to say, well, we've got to get Lois back to Metropolis, because well, guess what? Go read Bendis. She's back in Metropolis. You're fine.
Sure.
So that's and honestly, there's a mechanical issue, which is I only have so many pages. I don't want to have to justify her going back to Metropolis right now. I like her creating her own orbit, and it serves the book, I think, pretty well.
Agreed. No, and that's what's important is always when we all wanted this to happen, more than 20 years ago. I mean, going back to the basics of the Lois Lane book when it was at its best, I think in the 70s when it was like there really was like kind of an antagonistic moment between her and Superman. They weren't married then, but kind of, hey, I don't need you. I'm my own woman. I'm doing my own thing. And she should be doing her own thing. And also, of course, now in the marriage, they do understand each other. It's okay. It's so funny. There was a guy that's really against what's been going on in Superman since Bendis and you guys took over. And everything he got was wrong. And I think he's a foreign gentleman. He follows me on Facebook. And he's like, Superman and Lois are divorced. And Superman is a deadbeat dad. He's not there for his son. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you reading?
Yeah, I'm like, that's not happening at all. He's well, I guess I'm going to have to read it again. I'm like, maybe for the first time.
You're going to have to read it again. Yeah, try reading it,
yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
That is so fundamentally not what the story here is. No. And one of the things that I thought, I don't want to blow smoke Brian's posterior. There are plenty of people who are happy to do that. But I thought it was a very fair point, for him to very early on have Lois and Clark have a conversation that was, we're not your normal married people. They are, for lack of a better phrase, the ultimate celebrity power couple in a way.
Sure.
And attempting to, it's a nice fantasy, and they had a good run of, and here's Lois living in the Kent's farmhouse and baking pies for her boys.
Right, well, especially when they were undercover as the continuity allowed before the merging of the New 52 Superman and Lois. I don't know if that ever actually happened, but, that they were kind of living on the sly, coming from the post-crisis Earth. I love all this meta shit, so I'm happy to connect the dots. So,
but I mean, but the point being that I thought allowing them, I thought it was actually a hell of an endorsement of the marriage.
Yes,
to say
it's strong enough.
That's exactly it. And it's funny. I know a lot of couples that have to spend a lot of time apart, and sometimes prolonged times apart. And it's very viable to me. That Lois and Clark are able to make to me it's a given that they're going to make it work.
Sure.
Well,
that's what they were prior to being together. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that's part of the attraction to both of them as well. And I certainly think, as you've and I have discussed before, there's a reason why of all the Earthlings, it's Lois that Clark is, he likes her. He likes who she is. And who she is an investigative reporter that's out there doing the job. And that means sometimes being away or being undercover or whatever.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if you're married to Superman, right, then he is going to be Superman. If he is Superman in one thing, he is Superman in all things.
Yeah.
Right? And that means that, he's going to make the damn relationship work, provided that his partner is going to meet him halfway. Lois is going to meet him halfway.
Yeah.
So, and there ain't no way that Superman would have fallen for Lois if Lois was in any way going to, compromise herself to her detriment.
Sure.
For the relationship.
Absolutely.
All relationships require compromise. But, Lois is not a woman who is ever going to be like, well, I guess that's the end of my career, honey.
Well,
so.
Yeah, and also, again, her relationship to the DC Universe, she's one of the strongest human beings out there. And that's why, man, I'll tell you, it is disappointing, and I've certainly seen on the covers that it says 12-issue maxi series now. That's a shame, because there really should always be and should have been an ongoing Lois Lane book. I mean, well before the current cries for such things of the last 10 years, it's like, no, man, I mean, like I said, good Lord, going back to the Silver Age. The book started, silly in those ways that the Weisinger books did, just like the Jimmy books were crazy and stuff. But Lois really got to be very grounded. They tried it with Jimmy, but it really worked, I think, with Lois in particular.
I think, I think that with Jimmy, one of the things you get is a goofiness.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I think that's one of the things that Matt has, not only embraced, but I think is also rather brilliantly subverted.
Yep. Agreed.
Lois is, and I think for the most part, I really have not been looking to see what people have been saying about the book, but my understanding is that one of the things that at least journalists seem to be responding to in the Lois book is that Lois is a journalist.
Yep.
Which is good, because that was the goal. That has been the point. So,
well, and it's interesting because, obviously the cat's out of the bag with what Brian's doing with Clark. That's what's going to be interesting moving forward in Brian's book, because I think that's what makes Clark interesting. And people forget that he is an investigative reporter, and you've tapped into that on the times that you have written the Superman book as well. But again, we'll focus on Lois. But if you have any comments on, I just think it's interesting, and obviously you know much more of the game plan than I do. Brian, let me read the scripts for 18 and 19, and I'm certainly not here to spoil. But we did talk about the reveal, obviously. That's out there.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think when he? I should ask you what you think of the reveal and everything.
I'm still working my way through it.
Okay.
I think it is. You can absolutely justify it. His arguments for why Clark does this, I think, are very fair arguments. Mm-hmm. And given the story that he had been telling leading up to it, and given everything that is going on to precede it, it is a logical extension. And Brian is very much right now, every quote unquote artist goes through a phase, end quote. We have our Picasso blue periods and so on.
Okay.
And one of the things that Brian has been very clear about for the last since he was really sick, honestly, is truth and the value of truth and what it means to be true to oneself. And if you are, we how to put this, the nature, look, for the purposes of these stories, these characters are real. Superman lying is antithetical to who Superman is.
Sure.
It is a paradox inherent in the character. There is a very valid story of the moment when he says, this has done more harm than good. It is not needed. It is not necessary. That to be who I am, that to be true to myself, I have to own this. And that means I have to own the deception I've perpetuated. And I think, that to me is a very legit place for Superman to go.
Sure.
It is important, and one of the things Brian and I talked about when he said, so this is what's going on, like, and when did he tell Lois this is what he was thinking? Because that's a conversation they have to have had.
100%.
He can't do that without her knowing.
Sure.
Right.
Or coming to the realization that he has to do this. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting. We have a moment, I want to say, I think it's the beginning of issue 7, where it's from Renee's POV, but you see Superman bringing Lois back to the Drake. And the backstory there is that they have had the conversation. That is what they have gone to talk about.
Okay.
So that is what they are returning from having done. So, I mean, there's no way to know that except I told you. Right?
Okay.
But in my head, that was like, this is where that conversation is.
So it is subtext. It's not really played out in the dialogue or whatever.
Right. Because, again, I'm over in a mini. And I don't want to pepper the mini. There's already an issue coming up that is directly reactive to something that's happening in Event Leviathan. But I have to be very cautious as to how much of Lois I'm willing to commit to what's going on in the other books and how much needs to remain needs to be protected for Lois's own book.
I understand.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Because, in issue 5, we're talking the day that issue 5 came out, and there was a murder, and it clearly has Leviathan symbols around it and everything in the crime scene. And no,
actually, that's a misread of that sequence.
Oh.
It's contingent.
Ooh.
But, she's not dead.
That victim isn't dead. It's just she was attacked.
No. I guess it didn't come across. She tries to kill herself.
Oh.
And the
shame on me.
and the officer prevents her from doing so. So you'll see her again, hopefully, in getting the psychiatric help she needs.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Because like I said, I guess that threw me. And I wondered exactly how much the Lois book in general was tying into Leviathan and everything.
No, I mean, what's happening to that character, and that is actually an established character that nobody will be able to recognize yet.
Okay, good. Because I was who is that? And I guess we're not supposed to know yet.
If you figured it out on the basis of those 4 pages, you would get the biggest no prize. I I would have been really surprised. It's a very deep cut.
Excellent.
But because of what's going on in Event Leviathan, the events of Event Leviathan are a direct catalyst to that character's trauma.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, good deal. Well, and also we've got the mystery of how Vic Sage, Charlie, as Renee calls him. I'm never used to it, and I know that's his real name, but he's always Vic to me. But yeah, all of a sudden, as Renee and Vic have this conversation at Jerry's Diner, yeah, why are you alive? I thought you died. And he's like, yeah, I thought so too. And all I know is that I felt warm afterwards, and I thought that was really interesting. And I'm assuming, obviously, that's a big chunk of the story too, or a part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Though, again, some of the, like I said, I think the last time we talked about this is, Lois is pursuing many stories at the same time. And some of the truths need to be told, and some of the truths need to be told to the world, and some of the truths she's got to decide if she need to be told at all.
Interesting. Very cool. That's great, man. No, I'm digging it, man. Seriously, it's great. And also, again, even in the conversation that happens in issue 4, where the other part of her family and John, it's so great. It really was like this kid going to college kind of moment of, hey, I'm going away and I need to let you know about it and stuff. But they really did have that mother-son college kind of conversation feel.
Yeah, and that was very much the intent, because one of the things that's going on there as well, poor, you have to feel for Lois. She's lost a decade of her son's life.
Yeah.
And now he's, and now he's like, and now I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And that is, look, I mean, my son is, my son's in college.
Yep.
And taking him back to school this year was a particularly intense experience, I think, for both of us. And as I'm talking to you, Jen's out in New York now, and she was going to see him. She was going out to New York, to see some shows and
nice.
to take a little vacation on her own for her birthday.
Nice.
And Elliot came down because he's got a class that's meeting in the city tomorrow. So I was like, I can come down today. But, I don't have a lot of interest in depicting Lois and Clark as bad parents, or as the family as dysfunctional.
I'm with you.
If you go back to the premise that the marriage is an extraordinary marriage, they live an extraordinary life, and they have found a way to make it work. Then they have to be able to grapple with the extraordinary things that happen. And one of those is our son is now 17.
and went off to space with Grandpa. And survived some crazy shit. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Grandpa turns out to be a piece of work.
Yeah, well, let's dump him on Earth 3, and he gets to see the alternate version of his mom torture him and everything. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, this is why they are such unbelievable people, Lois and Clark, and this is why we love them. Is of course they can handle it. And that they will they'll be the right parents and stuff like that. No, that's who they are, man. And that's great. And also, again, Lois's relationship with the DC universe in general. And I mean, I assume we will we see more varied DC universe people, with the next 7 issues and everything?
I'm trying to think. 5 came out.
Yeah.
I'm finishing 8 right now. We're going to see some more of Lois's contacts, but one of the things I want to keep it I've wanted to keep it fairly limited.
Okay.
Because one of the other things that I want is to, for lack of a better phrase, if you can count, Diana Themyscira as one of your best friends,
yep,
then investigative reporting can be cheating real easy. You know what I mean?
Sure. Okay.
And here's my friend Diana, who will know if you are lying.
Well, that's true. Certainly, that's true. Yeah.
In point of fact, her mere presence makes lying difficult.
Right.
One of Wonder Woman's powers is it's not the lasso compels truth, but she compels truth. When you are in her presence, it is difficult to lie to her. Right?
I like it.
So, Lois is like, it would be great. I can't do that.
Well, yeah, and I could see that in terms of an interrogation or even an interview where she wants to get the absolute truth and everything. But yeah, I didn't know in terms of where she might be traveling and information that Carter Hall might have or Ollie Queen might have or, whatever.
There's a really good, let's just say there is a very logical, to me, assist that she's going to be getting around issue 10.
Okay.
From somebody who, when you see it, you're like, well, of course he would help.
Okay.
On this one, he would absolutely help.
Cool.
So, it's interesting because one of the things, and again, I said this the last time we talked, more than anything, I think of the book is a character study. This is what it is like to be Lois Lane. But on another level, it is, it's also an education in journalism and what journalism is and ethics as relates to journalism. And in some cases, it's fairly blunt. It is what does it mean to be off the record? And to say, these are what these terms mean is actually important information.
Hell yeah.
You need to know. And I got a note back from one of my editors after I'd written that being like, I didn't know this.
Wow.
How did you know this? And I was like, it's called research.
Sure.
Right? But I don't mean that to make it seem like the editor was ignorant. It's that we are not, as a public, we're not armed and educated as to how journalism works. And we're living in, obviously, as we have discussed, a period where journalism now has been, has been undermined.
Yes.
And faith in its integrity has been destroyed.
Yes.
And one of the reasons, not the reason, but one of the contributing factors is that, we have a population that is not educated into how journalism is supposed to work. Right. And we spent 20 years then saying it's okay to not actually tell the truth.
Yep.
The abolition of the fairness doctrine. The abolition of the fairness doctrine is the seed from which this poison tree grows.
Yep. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember the fairness doctrine. Absolutely, man.
And we need it.
Yeah, we did.
And we need it back.
Yep.
And we need it back. We need a new fairness doctrine that actually says if you run a social media platform, the same strictures apply.
Yeah. No, that's insane. And sadly, the people that can correct it are not armed with that. Now, so few are. So few of the, when the Congress has Facebook up and committee and, interviews, it's like, man, you guys, you don't really know what you're talking about. And it's like, where is your staff? How do you not have somebody on your staff like, hey, dig this up? I mean, the only person I've seen ask the right questions has been AOC, frankly.
Yep.
When it comes to Facebook. Yep. And, I don't care where your politics are, but everyone should be concerned about this because it really does affect everybody.
That's exactly it. It has... Look, if your politics are such, you can disagree with me, but if you don't have the faith in your convictions to be able to argue them with facts, then I don't have any. I can't have any respect for that.
I hear you.
I mean, it's just like You want to pursue your fantasy? That's fine. If you really believe it, then no more ad hominem bullshit attacks. Let's talk facts. And then we can disagree. All right? I can say, well, I do not accept that interpretation of your facts or whatnot, but you can't say they don't count. You can't say they don't matter. And yeah, so bringing this all back to Lois, interestingly enough, issue 5, and it's funny, I saw on our Discord, I saw a couple of people say, oh, I love that last scene with Renee. And there's going to be repercussions for that last scene,
Cool.
Renee gets the information, but if you think Lois can use it, you got another thing coming.
Cool. Yeah. No, I like how you've brought both Renee and Vic into the story, and obviously it gives you an opportunity to even explore Renee even that much further and everything. So yeah, I think that's cool.
Well, and Renee's sort of a fun release valve for the series because Lois is actually, I think, she's very intense. She is a high octane. She is a high octane woman.
Yes.
That's not to say she's never funny. That's not to say she's not jokey or flirty, or light. We've seen those things, but she's remarkably intense. Yeah. And I think the only character I've written who is more like driven and intense than her for DC would be Kate. Right. Okay. Like she and Kate Kane, could share a room on the intensity liner there. So one of the fun things you get with Renee is that Renee actually, at this point in her character arc, she's got a sort of glee about what she does, and come on, it's fun to work for Lois Lane. Come on, man. I mean, how cool is that? I get to work for Lois Lane. And holy shit, Superman showed up.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. So she brings some I think needed comic relief.
Well, like I said, I'm as Charlie's Mr. Or if it doesn't play out, I don't know. But I've enjoyed those conversations as well as Renee on her own and also Renee with Lois. So no, it's good group of characters, and again, I love the setting. I love what Mike is doing artistically. It's a lush book in a lot of ways. I mean, he's a great artist, and you guys work really well together. It reminds me in a different way of you and Michael when you guys work together. I mean, it's
I can see that.
Mike, obviously, when I say Mike, because they're both Michaels, Michael Lark versus Mike Perkins. But go on.
Yeah. The fun thing about Perkins is that, he is very precise, but he is very, there's something really sort of giddy and boyish about him.
I can see that.
That's really gleeful versus, and Lark, which is not to say Lark is not a guy who has fun. But Lark is he is very focused when it comes to the work. I rarely feel like he's enjoying himself when he's drawing the book. Like he'll come back and he'll be like, oh, no, that was great. And I love drawing this or whatnot. But most of the time I feel like I'm asking him to like do dental surgery on himself. And with Perkins, it's just like, whee! He's like, what do I get to do today? And it's like, yeah, that's it makes it fun to go to work.
That's cool, man. And have you guys, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen each other at conventions and stuff, but have you had time to really like hang out with Mike and everything?
Not a whole lot. We've gotten to do so some, which has been really nice.
He's a great guy. He's a real down-to-earth guy. Yeah,
and he's actually doing a show this coming weekend that unfortunately I wanted to be able to go to and I couldn't because as I said, Jen is out of town, so one of us needed to be here. And I had actually been like, oh, it'd be nice to be able to hang out for a while. So,
what town's he in? Do you know?
I can't remember where the show is. I know it's on the East Coast. I want to say it's in one of the Carolinas, but I genuinely can't remember.
Okay, that's cool. No, and I keep meaning, God, I got to get him on to talk about this series, and the same thing with Lieber to talk about Jimmy Olsen. Although Lieber, now I saw Lieber in Portland and everything, and I actually hung out at Helioscope for the day, and he's like, "Oh, wait for the trade. I'm like, "All right, whatever." And hopefully, I was supposed to talk to Matt Monday, and he had a cat emergency, as you know, and yes,
Pablo is not doing.
Yeah, that's sad, man. And no, hey, man, believe me, I went through with our dog Whiskers, who I wanted to name Crypto, but got voted down by the family. But Whiskers made it to 21, and it was a rough last couple of years. And my sister, baby, would carry him upstairs and stuff like that. And it was such a. When he did finally pass, we're both like, I don't think we want to go through this anymore. And the smart pet people, they get other dogs or cats right away, and that's good, and that's wonderful that, family can enjoy all the pets. But I don't know. It was, and especially losing our parents young, we're just like, I think that's enough death for now. So let's concentrate on the living and just enjoy our friends' pets and everything. So that's kind of where we are. But anyway, I hope to be talking to Matt on Monday. Now, expanding from what we were talking about with Lois, what can you tell me about the Metropolis City civic meetings that the three of you guys have?
First rule of Metropolis City Council is we don't talk about Metropolis City Council. I will tell you the following. You've been to Bendis's place, right? Yeah. So the last half dozen times we end up out there, and Brian has discovered that he really likes making a fire in that fireplace. So we will sit out by the fire, and because Brian keeps, the hours he keeps, we're never meeting before, 8:30 at night.
Yep.
So, we'll be out there for about 2.5, 3 hours. It's going to be harder as the winter starts.
Well, yeah, man, because you guys are having the same kind of weather we're having here in Chicago and stuff, and it is getting colder.
It's going to get, and he's up on the hill, which means that should we get snow, he's going to get it first. Which means that, Matt and I might find ourselves trapped. So, it's a twofold thing. On one, in the first instance, it is legitimately what it presents itself as. It is Matt and Brian and myself sitting down and going, okay, what's going on in your book? What's going on in your book? What do we need to be aware of? What is going on in the larger DC picture that we need to be aware of? I am looking at doing this thing. How does that affect you? Any ideas about this, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a fair amount of sort of bookkeeping in that sense, and attempting to collaborate and to, at the very least, be aware of the other's needs. Yeah. And then in the second instance, it is an excuse for the three of us to get together because we never would otherwise. We can all live in the same town, but we just wouldn't see each other, except on rare occasions. And I know for me, I don't know if they would agree with this, but I know for me, I need that social interaction because it would be really easy for me to not go out and see anybody.
I hear you.
So.
All right. I can appreciate that. Well, and also, go on.
It is mental health check in many ways.
Honestly, I know a lot of artists that, do drink and draw for that same reason. Just to get out of their, studio and see other people, and whether they're actually bringing work to those kind of social outings or just literally just sketching for the hell of it and just getting away from the work and stuff. No, I've seen both examples, and I'm a fly on the wall for those here in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you need to do it because it becomes very easy to let the boundaries of your life be the work, and that ain't healthy.
I understand. No, I agree. That's fair. And again, I don't mean to pry in any personal time between yourself and Brian, but I know Brian's been very open about when he was in the hospital having these intense Superman conversations with you. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on, really just the light shit that you were able to like kind of talk about to take his mind off of the worst scenario.
I think, bless him, he, I think he credits me with more perhaps than he needs to. He was a very, very dear friend who was in the hospital. I went to see him regularly, right? Mm-hmm. And in that, he the one thing that will always make Brian feel better is working, and he couldn't work. But what he could do was he could talk about the work he wanted to do. So we would talk, and mostly in that I would listen. And I was happy to do that.
Okay.
I cannot take credit for any of his ideas, Okay. I can take credit only for trying to be a good friend when I had a friend who needed it. And even that seems a little self-aggrandizing, honestly. He is very, very generous with his praise, but at the end of the day, he was really sick. And it was it was a mile and a half walk from my house to the hospital.
Oh, that's great, man.
I was more than happy to walk over and spend a couple hours.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. No, and honestly, I think, and I'm glad that the city council meetings allow you guys to, the three of you really, to, like you said, be social and do that. I'm bummed, man. I really was, I was hoping to sit in on our meeting. Not to record it even for Word Balloon, but just to kind of getting a feel and everything. And I missed it. And then, of course, I picked the dumbest week. Why did I pick Rose City when obviously, literally, I mean, I just figured
it really, I have to say,
kind of stupid.
If you wanted to come to the show, it was a great week. If you wanted to come and hang out with everybody, it was the worst week because
I just kind of figured because it sounded like a lot of you guys are pretty cavalier about the show. And, of course, like an idiot, you've got an adaptation of your, one of your greater own things debuting on a network, and also that they're making of course they're going to make a big deal out of it at the Portland show about a show of, a detective show in Portland. And, I'm like, oh, yeah, dumbass, so stupid. And then, of course, Matt and Kel, too. So, no, I totally am like, all right, note to self, next time. Pick a down week, and then I'll be able to see each other more. So everybody, man. But it was great. It was great seeing you. And honestly, dude, I'm so thrilled for what's happening with Stumptown. Let's take a Stumptown detour. And Jesus, man. I mean, and I know you're obviously. Well, I don't know. How active are you on the show? I mean, I know you consulted, and your name's on the credits and everything. And I know you've been to the set and everything. But yeah, tell me how much you're involved.
Hold on a second.
Finish your thought. It's all right. This is all good, man. Are you kidding? This is great.
I am. It's interesting. I am. So when they put something together like this, right? The executive producership is, in our cases, meaning Justin and Matthews and myself, yes. In many ways, a token gift.
I'm with you.
Right. And I think there was perhaps an expectation on the parts of the people who were actually making the show, on Jason Richmond's and Dave Bernad's and the Division's part, that my interest in it and my participation in it would be confined pretty much to promotion, right?
Okay.
and that's fine, sure. Right? And Jason and I spoke, at the start, and I made it clear to them at the beginning. It's like, I am a resource and I am here to be used, and I do not want to get in your guys' way. They send me episodes and I get to see them.
Okay.
And I see them before they air. I get them in various stages of cuts, and I give notes. I am very judicious in the notes I give. Jason has talked about me writing for the show, and that may be something that actually happens eventually. It may not. They got picked up for the back 5 of the season.
Congratulations.
Right?
Yes, I saw that news. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they've got a full season order, and that's wonderful. I don't know if my schedule or their schedule will allow for me, potentially participating I don't see it this season, maybe in the second season. Okay. But right now, I am very careful about how I use the powder I have.
Okay.
So that if I have a note for them, I check myself a lot before going, okay, this one I think I need to send you guys, or this one I need to reach out to you, because they are they're running like crazy.
I bet, yeah. Yeah.
I just received, I think, the cut to 108, and 106 is airing
today.
It just ended in your time zone, and it's going to start in 50 minutes in mine.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it. It was great.
Yeah. It's a fun episode.
Yeah.
So, they have been so generous and so welcoming. And I honestly can't, I don't know what more to say. It is a delight, and it's kind of a luxury to be able to see something that is derived from your work that you did not directly help with the adaptation of, right? My involvement in the adaptation, the actual act of adapting it, was fairly, very limited,
right,
honestly. And to be able to say in all sincerity, no, I like it, I think it's good, is a privilege, and is rarer than you might think.
Yeah.
You're talking to the guy, who they made white out.
Yeah.
And I feel to this day a need to apologize to people who went and saw it. And it wasn't anybody's, it wasn't like anybody tried to screw that pooch.
Yeah.
But that pooch was walking funny anyway. So everything I've seen on the show, and they've done some things where I've been like, I wouldn't have gone there. And I know they're planning some things that, I had discussed with Jason. I was like, it's this and this and this in the comic. And it's very clear to me that they're not going to follow.
Okay.
And I think they're going to do some stuff that to me seems very network, but okay.
Okay.
Okay. But it's a network show.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's sort of like complaining that, the bath was wet. It's like, well, yes, and also that's me, as my late father would say, that's me actually practicing some prior restraint. I haven't seen it yet. My hope is that in the new year, once they've had things sort of settle, and they've gotten things ironed out, I'm actually, because I'd been trying to get down, they'd asked me, come down to the writer's room, come down to the set, and I just haven't had time because I've been working on other projects. I'm hoping that I will be able to actually make that trip. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in LA, and I need to go down for basically a week, hopefully, probably later this month, and maybe get to catch up with everybody.
Cool, man. That's fantastic. Well, and we'll get to the other projects as well. No, I feel the same way, Greg. I really like it, and I really feel like it captures the spirit of what you guys were doing, you, Justin, and Matthew, and everything. And it really, again, it's its own thing, and I don't mean to keep bringing it up, but there is this great Rockford echo.
Oh yeah, no, and that is absolutely. I mean, why would you?
Well,
to bring
I don't want
that
you
up?
to. I don't want you to owe money to Steve Cannell and Roy Huggins.
Look, Garner's daughter, and I've forgotten her name, tweeted after the pilot that people had been trying to make a show like the Rockford Files for years, and Kobe Smulders is the closest they've ever come.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
And I'm never gonna deny the DNA. Stumptown is the granddaughter of the Rockford Files.
Man. Yeah.
You don't get Stumptown without the Rockford Files.
Yep.
And Jason Richmond wouldn't hesitate to say that as well. To say that these things inspired us and are touchstones for us isn't, that's not plagiarism.
I'm with you.
It's not even.
I'm with you.
It's acknowledging the work of the giants who came before. Yeah. And I have no qualms about admitting that.
That's great, man. No, and they're hitting those right notes, and man, as soon as I saw that 3-minute teaser that bookends the pilot episode of her coming out of the trunk and attacking the guys that kidnapped her, and with Sweet Caroline playing in the background and stuff, and that fucking car. It's fantastic. That car is great.
That horrible piece of shit.
Exactly
car.
with
that was the biggest argument I had with Jason. Actually, was that he was like, no, it's got to be a piece of crap, and I was like, yeah, but it needs to be it needs to be an unreliable car that looks good. It doesn't need to look like that. Yeah, he is of a different opinion there, obviously. So.
Well, and the use of source music has been great on the show too.
Yeah, it does make me wonder if it ever gets syndicated, if they're gonna have to pull all those songs.
Shit. Exactly, man. You're right. Because I had Robert Wool on the show, not to name drop, like back in May, and we were talking about Arliss, the HBO show, and so many of their submarine jokes were tied to music cues of pop hits. And he's like, yeah, they had to suck all that out. And I'm like, oh, that's so... I mean, like, yeah, they would really make scenes and stuff like that, just like they're doing in Stumptown. And I almost wondered, who's the parent company that's making Stumptown? Is it Disney? Is it a Disney show, or is it...
It's ABC, so...
Yeah, because, I was trying to think of, like, well, if it's Universal, maybe they got access to the Sony catalog or whatever, Or whatever. I mean, I don't even know these days. Who's tied to what? Well, I guess they got Fox Music or whatever. But go on.
Well, I was going to say. I mean, remember that we are. This is a high class problem.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about potential trouble they'll have in syndication
and DVDs. Yeah, I know, man. You're right. It's streaming.
I mean,
or post.
I mean, really? This is the thing we're worrying about. They're making the damn show. There's nothing to complain about here. So,
You're right, of course. And the music, the actual original music that they're playing is good. And God, I mean, tonight's episode had a former love of Dex's that was a punk rocker, and she was very, or whatever, or a grunge rocker. I'm not really sure. I'm an old man, but the music was good. I enjoyed the music, and it was the show. It looks right. It sounds right. I mean, again, my limited experience of visiting Portland, I'm like, yeah, that looks like Old Town. That's the Old Town I just visited 2 months ago. Yeah, man. And her contact that has the food truck and everything that Carolyn Manheim is spending time with. Yeah, funny. Good stuff.
Yeah, Adrian Martinez is character.
Great
I
stuff.
have to say, one of the things that I love most in this episode in 106 is actually that sort of seed plot between Cosgrove and Tukey, and watching Cameron and Adrian get to just play opposite each other was a delight. That was really terrific.
Yeah, no, it's a great cast top to bottom. No, I got to be honest. Sometimes Donnell Lois really annoys me. And he's supposed to, obviously, in Stumptown. But he
was terrific in the two he had.
Great addition.
And you want him. Yeah, I mean, if Artie isn't coming back, they're making a big mistake. So
yeah, 2 episodes so far with Artie Banks.
And I mean, this is the thing. I have plenty of opinions on things they could do, should do. I feel there are episodes that I think, just suggest themselves that I would love to see them do, that I would love to write. But at the end of the day, not my show.
Oh, I'm up. Yeah.
And that's the thing I sort of have to keep reminding myself. It's like I want to be I want to be additive to their process without being a pain, because it is a different beast. Yep. It's not the comic. Though it's funny, Justin emailed me last week saying, like, we really got to use Tukey in, like, the next one. And I was like, he's kind of right. Because Tukey is not in the comic.
And that's what I was going to ask. Was like, how many characters that aren't in the comic would you consider putting in and everything? Go on.
Well, I wouldn't change R. Hoffman, right? R. Hoffman is R. Hoffman. I don't want to get rid of her. I think, what they've done with Gray is not only good, but was vital. Agreed. Just because our Gray existed for a very different purpose. And I think we talked about this last time, when you're making a TV show, every character's got to have their life.
Right. Their own story,
and
yes.
Right. And when you're working in a comic, every character gets to have their own life, but the amount of time you're able to spend on there is much more limited. And consequently, Gray's purpose in the comic is a very different one than Gray's purpose in the show. And that's not, and that isn't a criticism at all. I hope that that's abundantly clear. That isn't a problem. It's just an acknowledgement of, no, this is different.
Well, it's got longer, it has a longer, gestation period or whatever, in terms of how much time you're spending with it, especially when it's a network show as opposed to a cable show or a streaming show, even. And to be honest, Greg, from day one, I'm like, oh, ABC. And half of me was like, that's awesome. And the other half of me is like, Jesus, man, this is really not the best time to be a network television show, a new one.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, but it's not a good time to be anything in media. I mean, if you think, look, if you're reading the things I'm reading, it's not a good time to be a comic. Yeah. It's not a good time to be a movie, and it's not a good time to be on television. What are people doing? But there's always going to be a good time to be a story well told, yes. Right? And there's always going to be a time, for people are always going to want to be entertained. Yes. And preferably entertained in a way that, engages them and delights them enough so that they want to come back and do it again. So, I saw Terminator Dark Fate this weekend, and apparently it's opened very poorly.
Yeah, how was it? Tell me what you thought.
I really liked it.
That's...
And I say this as a guy... Well, and I say this as a guy who... the last Terminator movie I saw in the theaters was T2.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Because T2 to me was the appropriate ending, and why do more? And then seeing Dark Fate, I was like, see, this to me is a good sequel. Okay. I like what they did here quite a lot. But as I understand it, at least as of today, somebody was telling me that it is performing akin to the way Blade Runner 2049 performed. And I thought 2049 was terrific.
And, I still haven't seen it. Shame on me because, for now it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think some people are asking, do we need a sequel or whatever? I don't think I was consciously doing that, but just, I don't know. I wasn't, I'm like, I'll get to it, and I still haven't gotten to it. And in the case of Terminator, like you said, there have been so many misfire sequels. I did see the third movie and thought it was fine. It wasn't as good as the first two. I saw Gabe Hardman say online that, in a lot of ways, the second Terminator movie was a remake of the first two, a better budgeted first Terminator movie, really.
Yeah, but that's not, in my opinion, a terribly deep cut. I mean, yes, I rewatched them recently back to back, and yes, that's absolutely true. They are very similar structures. They are very similar beats. They're even very similar set pieces. But I actually think that, sometimes that's an intentional choice. That's not a lack of creativity. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you could make these same arguments about Dark Fate if you wanted. You could say, well, once again, we've got a Terminator trying to kill somebody, and they have to get away, and they're in cars, and they're being chased, and they can't. Yeah, because it's a Terminator. What are they supposed to use?
But right? I wonder if, and as I've heard people Monday Morning Quarterback, the marketing of this new movie, that they've said maybe we didn't see enough of the newness in the trailers.
Yeah, I saw Matt Clark today, and Mike Henderson and Aaron Duran. He seemed to be doing pretty well. It was looking good today.
I'm glad to hear that.
But we were talking about, and one of the things that they said is they felt there hadn't been. They felt the promotion didn't give enough of the story.
Yeah, exactly.
That it wasn't selling what this was about. And okay, all right, maybe.
Yeah, because that's what I got from the trailers. She's back, he's back, and shit's blowing up, and they're in trucks and cars, and it's like, yeah, it looks like a Terminator movie. Okay, and I was kind of hoping to hear more. And and again, God, every person I know who's seen it has loved it. Whose opinions I value. So it's very interesting, and now I'm thinking maybe I will see it tomorrow afternoon.
I really, I really did like it. I really genuinely.
That's great to hear, man. That's great to hear, and I mean, that's cool. Did you see Joker?
No, I didn't, and I don't have any interest in it.
I understand. You're not the first person to tell me that.
I mean, I really don't. It may be brilliant.
I don't think it was brilliant. I don't think it was brilliant.
I know that it's doing remarkably well. I just have no interest. I'm not the audience for it.
Well, Greg, there's something to be said about that, because I do think, and I've had several conversations about it, so for my Cliff Notes and what you might think of this, to me, it's like watching a cover band do a song to a generation that didn't know the original version. And it's like, wow, this is really fresh, this is really interesting. And it's like, if you know Taxi Driver and if you know King of Comedy, not so much. And again, it's nobody's fault, because how dare I expect a 20-something or younger audience, or maybe even into their 30s, see these movies that are from 40 years ago and 30 years ago. I get it, but I've grown up a film buff and stuff. I saw those movies, and they're very much in my conscious, and I can't help but think, comparing them and everything, and it's. They make interesting choices. I also know too much, or I've read too many Batman and Joker stories, that I have preconceived notions about these characters. And you could tell me it's a different world and everything on that.
Yeah, I just, just for my purposes, I don't think this fascination with explaining the Joker, I don't get it. I don't think it was ever needed. I think Killing Joke is a deft piece of work, but I think in many ways it was one of the worst things that could have happened to the DC universe, because people didn't read it closely, and therefore they go, well, that's the Joker's origin story. When Moore says bluntly, it isn't. Right. But people ignore that because they didn't read it, or they don't want it. And, in terms of archetypes, and in terms of the Batman Rogues Gallery, the Joker is supposed to fulfill a very specific role. Denny and I would talk about this a lot. He is a malicious trickster god. He is not supposed to be knowable. And his pathology is supposed to be the pathology in that rogues gallery that you cannot crack.
Exactly. Yes.
And yet there's this whole industry that says, oh, this is why now. This is how he is. Oh, the Red Hood is a real thing now. And so on. It's like, dude, man, none of that.
Yep.
None of that. But we have decided, there was, I don't know. Like my feeling on the current state of Batman is not going to be popular, and potentially controversial, and will piss people off. But I think they lost their course on that a while ago.
When you say which they are you talking about?
I think across the board. I think DC. I think Warner.
Interesting.
I think that they have that office in comics, suffers from being Batman, so it is inherently profitable, which means that, look, I don't want to.
I understand.
Let's just say I feel that they have done things over there that were ill-conceived decisions, but that's what happens in mainstream comics a lot.
Sure.
You will see over and over again, and God knows I've been in these rooms and I've lost this argument more times than I've won it. Decisions to do X, Y, or Z because it'll be cool, without thinking through the ramifications for the rest of the universe if you do this. And both DC and Marvel are guilty of ultimately relying on the fact that, Spider-Man is Spider-Man or Batman is Batman, and therefore you can get away with a murder. Sometimes literally, because the books will only move so much. Right? They're only going to drop so much.
Interesting.
But the result is, that you will see. And we've seen this, God knows, we've seen it time and time again. Here's a story idea that that is pursued because it's going to be this great event. It's going to sell a lot of books. Good job. You just blew up half of your universe and destroyed your continuity.
I understand. Hilarious.
And it's crazy. You look at it and you go, like, that's madness. So.
I understand, and I hear what you're saying about both companies, and it's going to be it'll be an interesting next couple of years, and we all kind of can see some of the signposts of where we're heading, and very interesting, and will be very controversial when they happen. Well, and then so as we again, I was kind of curious, and I don't blame you for your feelings about the Joker movie, and yeah, man, hey, again, every Batman story isn't everybody else's cup of tea, so I can appreciate that as well. There's no right answer.
No, that's precisely it. I can't comment on the movie. I haven't seen it. All I can say is I have no interest in that movie. I had no interest in that movie when it was announced, and now that it's come out, I have no interest in seeing it. And that doesn't mean it is a bad movie, and it doesn't mean that the people who love it shouldn't. It's all I am saying is I am not interested in that thing. I am not attacking somebody else's fandom. I am saying that ain't my bag.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Before I forget, something that normally is in your wheelhouse, and I haven't watched it yet on Netflix. I wonder if you have. Sacha Baron Cohen's Spy show on Netflix.
I have not seen it yet. I've got it in the queue. I watched Red Sea. I watched Red Sea Diving Resort.
I haven't seen that.
I really liked it. It's not. I mean, it's not terribly deep. And I think the thing that I've been holding off on Spy is that looks like it's going to be a nut shrinker. That looks like it's going to be one that's going to hurt every episode's gonna hurt.
So what's Red Sea Diving Resort?
It's Chris Evans. He plays a Mossad agent, and it is what is it? It is a fact-based reenactment of the Israeli government's operation to get a large portion of the Ethiopian Jewish community out of the country in the early 80s and to Israel. It was part of Operation Magic Carpet. And as a dramatization, and as a story of its period, I thought they did a really good job.
It's a series or movie?
It's just a movie. It comes in about 2 hours. It's on Netflix.
Okay. Cool.
And it actually, it's got, you don't walk away from it going, ow. So, I quite enjoyed that. I've been rewatching Peaky Blinders.
Okay.
And Jen and I have been rewatching The Good Place over and over.
Oh, that's great. I've been stacking this season and haven't been watching this season yet.
That's kind of what we were doing. We broke and we watched the first 4.
Okay.
And then we're like, okay, no more. We can't watch it anymore.
It's so good. It is so good. And good for them to end on their own terms. And honestly, there's a network show that I can't believe survived. And I'm so glad that it did because it is so crazily good. Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing.
It is a remarkable show.
And again, that NBC understood what it had and gave them the space to tell their story and be like, okay, that's enough. I'll admit I did, because I was really curious about the premise, I got Apple TV and I've watched the first 2 episodes of For All Mankind, the Ron Moore show. I hear that one's actually the good one. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Yeah. And I'll stick with it until the end of it. I haven't watched Morning Show. I haven't watched Jason Momoa's show either. But this is the one that intrigued me the most, and especially coming from Ron Moore and being the Star Trek and Galactica fan that I am and knowing how good he is. Yeah. And it's a lot of Galactica crew. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, this is in good hands. And, I mean, God, especially what great timing, and obviously on purpose, to release it, 6 months after the anniversary of the moon landing. And also, I certainly rewatched Hanks's From the Earth to the Moon, the HBO show, while they were replaying it and stuff. And it's like, oh man, this is really great alternate universe stuff. It's fun. Yeah, and it's a terrific premise. I am intrigued by that. And then of course we've got Disney Plus dropping next week. I know, Mandalorian.
Everybody, that was the big conversation at lunch. Are you going to watch it? Are you going to watch it? Like, are they dropping it all at once? Is it only going to be an episode a week? How are they doing it? It's like, so.
Well, while we're on the streaming subject, how are things going with Old Guard?
I believe very well. Gina and I exchanged some texts last week. She was like, you have to come down and see the cut. I was like, I would love to come down and see the cut. And I actually put together about 20-odd photos that Leo and I had taken when we were on set and put them in a Dropbox folder, sent the link to Netflix today, basically saying, look, just let me know which of these we can use and which of these we can't, because we're putting together back matter for the first issue of the second story. And I figured, for that back matter, because we don't do letters for the Old Guard, I figured for that one, we've got the pages. We could do a little essay, and say, this was our experience. Here's some pictures on the set.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. When does the arc drop?
First issue is mid-December.
Excellent. Okay, we're coming up. That's great.
Yeah, we got Lazarus Risen 3 is the end of this month.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah. Because you've had the first 2 issues so far, indeed.
Yeah, that'll end Fracture 1.
Okay.
And then I think the trade is January. I don't remember when the trade is. I should know these things off the top of my head, but I don't. And then I believe issue 4 is going to be late March. And then, I mean, we're going to continue trying to meet the schedule we set. So far, so
is
good.
that is that moving forward? Is that the plan, is to do them in these big chunks like this and do it more kind of quarterly?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal, is that it is now a quarterly book. And if we can deliver it as promised, then I will be happy. And issue 3 is, issue 3 is going to be out as promised. I mean, if it doesn't hit the stores, it's because something went wrong on the production end. But our part of that issue is done. Everything is in. Everything was approved as of this past Friday.
How long of a story arc is Risen?
Well, the Risen title is, but Fracture is basically a 2-part Uber arc. So it's Fracture 1, which is issues 1 through 3.
Okay.
Issue 4 is going to be a standalone sort of flashback that informs some stuff.
Okay.
And then issues 5, 6, and 7 will be Fracture 2. And at that point, the fuse is lit.
Okay.
So,
is there a release date for Old Guard, the movie?
All I know is they're looking, I believe, July 2020.
Okay, wow. Okay, that really, I kind of thought it would be at the beginning of the year, but okay, that's great. Whatever.
Yeah, I believe it is supposed to be a summer movie.
Okay, wow, interesting.
Yep,
that's cool.
Though I have no idea if it'll get a theatrical release or not. It may just go straight to streaming.
Yeah, isn't that an interesting rhythm now with, Dolomite and Irishman and everything? Yeah.
Yeah. I just really got no clue.
No, I understand. Well, and again, this is, I'm interested because again, I'm not shitting on Martin Scorsese. I never would. I love that guy, but I do find his opinions interesting in today's environment, and I almost think it's like, hey, don't blame Marvel, man. It's unfortunately this is kind of the beast that going to the theater has evolved into, where I think the exhibitors, the theater owners, are just as much to blame as, if there is a word, like if blame is the right word. But it's like, well, these movies make more money.
No, it's not the theater owners. It's
there you go. And I was going to say it's definitely the studios, and it's like, don't pick on Marvel, pick on the old guard of studios.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, yeah, I see where he's coming from. I think he said it horribly. I think he did not make his argument well or articulate it well. And I think part of it is there's a little element of old man shouts at clouds to it, which is, you know what? It would be great if people could make movies like they did in the
100%.
70s again. But that's gone. There is, I think, there is a legitimacy to say, like, studios will not in the main take a chance on something that isn't going to give them an enormous return on their for their investors, not on their investment, but for their investors. And that becomes incredibly problematic, because then you only get these movies that are the same thing. And honestly, they're the same thing. They are the same things over and over and over again. The difference from one Marvel movie at this point to another Marvel movie is in the costumes and in the quips and in which characters they are choosing to highlight. But there has not been a Marvel movie that has been like, well, that is a remarkably different superhero movie.
Agreed.
Right? They haven't done that.
Agreed.
And even outliers like Deadpool and Logan.
Well, that's what I was going to say, that they are kind of the exceptions and technically not Marvel movies, technically.
Right. They're not Marvel movies because those movies aren't going to be made by Disney. But by the same token, they're really not the outliers that people pretend they are. Right? Break them down. What's the difference?
Well,
I mean, structurally, what's the difference? The difference is there's profanity and
well, yeah, I suppose, but I would argue go on, and then I'll tell you my
there's profanity, death, and sex. So they made superhero movies. No, they made superhero movies rated R. That's what they are.
Yes.
Right? You can, and for that reason, you can tell a different story in them. But the beats are inherently the same. The journey of these characters is almost identical.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
What is the Logan journey in Logan? It's the same journey that Thor has in Thor.
Sure.
Right? It's I don't want to be this. I got to go back to being.
I hear you, man. But I would give a contrarian opinion. I wouldn't even say argue, but I would say that I keep going back to that the superhero film is like the Western. In terms of we started with Black Hat, White Hat in the silent era, and then by the 50s with Bud Bedecker and the other, Stanley Kramer with High Noon and everything and all these other movies, it's like, okay, now we're getting a little more complex. We are getting a little shade of difference. But you're right in terms of it's still the hero's journey, and just like every superhero movie is very much like the Western in a lot of ways. But I do think we're getting some interesting different colors. It's not great cinema, but it's entertaining, and also they're going beyond the basics in terms of Ant-Man being a caper movie and Deadpool being a comedy and then Logan being, Yojimbo and everything, or Yojimbo. And I mean, it's like, okay, I'm with you. And again, I think there's still room to explore, and especially in things like The Boys, which I think was a great subversive kind of story. I'm enjoying Watchmen. Mm-hmm. And what it represents.
I have not watched Watchmen yet, and everything I've heard is unrelentingly positive.
It's shocking. It really is, because I give Lindelof a lot of credit, because everyone, I think, was expecting the worst, and it's like, oh, this is a really interesting story. And again, I wonder what Dave thinks about it. I know what Alan probably thinks about it, but
if Alan thinks anything about it.
But yeah, I mean, I look forward to seeing Dave and even off the record just going, what do you think, man? And how much he's willing to divulge. I love Dave, and he's so generous with his time, and he's always great when I see him. That's why I'm always like, all right, I don't want to abuse the the acquaintanceship. Yeah. It's like, Dave, you like me. I want to stay on the right side of you, because even when
we don't want to squander that.
Before Watchmen came out, goddamn, now 10 years ago or whatever, however long it was, when DC was putting out those prequels and everything. I'll be honest, I totally understand.
Was that long ago?
Well, like 12. I want to say.
I honestly don't remember.
I think 2011, because I think it was the 25th anniversary in '86. So if you do the math. Or the 20th anniversary, maybe, or the 20.
No, I think you're right, because they were in the works when I left DC in 2009. So yeah,
and yeah, I mean, I'll admit, as much as I understood and appreciated the argument this shouldn't happen, I like some of the stories. I thought Darwin did a great job with Minutemen. I thought Amanda and Darwin did a great job with the Silk Spectre story, and I love how they shoehorned in the 60s music movement into Silk Spectre's story. I thought was great. I like Brian's comedian, Azarella's comedian and stuff. I thought was an interesting story. Especially comedian. Rorschach was Rorschach, but I really thought Canadian was an interesting story. So I mean, there were a handful of them that I'm like, okay, this is cool, or interesting. And again, it's like, they're great characters, so I did kind of want to see more of them. And this is very much its own story, but set in the Watchmen universe, which is like, okay, I'm there. Yeah. I'm there. I'm interested.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've been hearing, like I said, I've been hearing nothing but good things.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, and again, that's why, I point to The Boys. Did you see The Boys on Amazon?
I haven't yet.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, so that's what I'm saying is I do think there's room within the genre to tell interesting stories. And I think The Boys especially is not your typical hero's journey at all.
Well, and I would argue that it's actually not, well, look.
It's cool.
Right, but okay, so the Boys is a comic that's how old now? That media is only starting to exploit, and it is still technically it's Hollywood just aggressively eating everything it eats in comics. It's just accelerating up that line. Well, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. So we're going to do this. Now we're going to do the revisionist take.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to do revisionist superhero next. So, there's an audience for it because these movies keep making money. People keep going to see them. It will be an interesting moment when, and it is a when because it will happen. A Marvel movie bombs on opening weekend.
Yeah, it has a dark fate weekend. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to be an interesting reckoning. But the flip side is it may not matter because there's Disney Plus.
Right. Yes.
So.
Well, and again, I guess we'll see comparing, Last Jedi, or Last Skywalker, or whatever the hell it's called, the end of the fall of Sky, whatever, the rise.
Yeah, the rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. and Mandalorian, and see how they fare. I agree.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting times, man. And again, God, I remember, and I feel Jeff is going to be fine. Jeff Loeb is going to be fine. And honestly, he has nothing to apologize for. Did a hell of a job as a television executive, and has as good of a batting average as a Gary Marshall or a Norman Lear, who had just as many hits as he did failures, and as the same thing with Gary Marshall for that matter. I don't know. I'm thinking of TV comedy people when I think of showrunners and stuff. But I mean, that's the thing. So I remember having that conversation with him years ago about what happens when Downey's too. I mean, this was my thought back then, when Downey's too old to be Iron Man. And he's like, wasn't that a first world problem to have? And it's like, yeah, you're right, man. I mean, whatever happens. And then, I think much like the Western, the superhero film will eventually not be as popular. But I kind of think it's probably here to stay. The genre's here to stay. I kind of think. Yeah.
We'll see. They said that about Westerns, and then they disappeared for 30 years.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, they did and they didn't. I mean, there were Westerns still being made in that fallow period and everything, so...
Name me a Western that got a theatrical release between Pale Rider and Unforgiven.
Silverado.
Does Silverado come after?
I thought after Pale Rider. And also I would... And you're right to say theatrical release, because during that time, they certainly made a lot of TV Westerns on, made-for-TV movies. Good ones. I mean, Turner. You probably remember back in the late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, the Lonesome Dove.
Sure.
The unending.
Well, that one, but also
look, and you're talking to a guy who loves Silverado, right?
Yeah.
But those were movies that see. I disagree with you. Those were outliers.
Yeah, but they existed. I'm saying again, they.
Yeah, they existed, but that's like saying, that's like saying The Irishman exists, or whatnot. That just because something comes out, once every 8 years, doesn't mean that means that a studio is willing to take the gamble on that for whatever
and again,
reason.
I hear what you're saying, and again, when you stress theatrically, and yes, there was the Lonesome Dove stuff, but I was also thinking of a lot of those directed Turner TNT things that were like one-shot movies that Frankenheimer was making westerns, and I can't tell you the other filmmakers, but Walter Hill, I believe, did a western or two for them. And again, so
again, we're talking. Yeah, see, the counter argument to what you're saying is that was the only place they could
go. And that's fair too. But I would also say that obviously they were able to make them within a budget that worked. And they kept doing it for a while. And also, that's the thing, man. It isn't an exclusive world anymore where it's theater versus TV. And, you're experiencing it, obviously, with Netflix and stuff. And we talked about this last time.
Oh, yeah, no. And I've had discussions, actually, this week with studio people about, the potential demise of the theatrical model is happening much faster than they anticipated. Sure. Which, to me, is... look, it's not going to upset my kids at all.
Exactly. Yes.
But to me, it's heartbreaking because I like going to the movies. So,
I hear you, man, and I don't disagree. Yeah, and again, the mid-budget movie is finding its home on streaming, and these other platforms, and that's, I'm shrugging. It is what it is, and maybe it will change, maybe it will flip back. It's a shame, but I also think that people don't have that. They don't understand the community experience. The one place that it still exists beyond the spectacles and superhero movies are, I was just talking about with Tim Seeley, horror movies. People will still get together and go to a theater to see a horror movie and listen to other people scream.
And horror's never been a genre that's really done.
Totally feel the same way, man. It's funny. I get so many PR requests for direct-to-video horror movies. And God, if I was a horror fan, I'd be a pig in shit. Seriously,
Yeah, you'd be delighted.
Yeah, but I'm not. Exactly, man. Every now and then I'll get a sci-fi movie or a Western, and I'll dip into those. But yeah, man, it's like I'm almost embarrassed. And again, I just don't, I don't respond. And if I were a horror fan, it would definitely be another dimension of Word Balloon, would be to just concentrate on these movies. But it would be a chore to do it. I really wouldn't enjoy doing it. So, I don't know. Anyway, what are we...
We're sounding like the cranky guys on the lawn now.
Again, hey, man, it's there is some, and that's why I understand where Coppola and Scorsese are coming from, because there is something about cinema and the size of the screen and the ability to tell a story in that scope that does get lost in translation on the smaller screens. It just does. I mean, I just saw Downton Abbey, the movie, and had never seen the show because and it's ironic, my buddy is doing a Downton Abbey rewatch podcast up in Milwaukee, and she is like totally plugged into the PBS world in Milwaukee and does an art show for PBS, and also is a massive Anglophile, so constantly goes. She was at the Royal Wedding last year, and she goes to see when the young ones have plays. She gets to see them and has gotten to meet them, and she interviewed John Cleese on stage in Milwaukee. So she's really plugged in, and I have never seen the show, but I liked Godsford Park, and I liked Upstairs, Downstairs 40 years ago. So I'm like, all right, I'll go, and I like period pieces, so I'm like, yeah, I'll watch the movie, and it was great, and also I appreciated the scope of it being a movie, and again, I don't have the television show to compare it to, but when they're taking you through the Abbey, it's like, oh my God, this is a beautiful, ridiculous, majestic place, as it should be and everything. And they really took advantage of the scope of cinema. And it was funny thinking, wow, look at this TV show on the big screen. And also that here's an outlier that, God, go back to when the X-Files movie was made and compare that TV to movie experience to where we are now with Downton Abbey. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. So I don't know. I don't know.
No, look, I mean, and we can talk. We can continue this conversation for hours.
Anyway, back to you and back to comics. What am I missing? Any? Oh.
I'm not sure. There's.
Well, I was
going
to say, I don't know. Were you and Jesus Christ, Nicola? Thank you. God damn it! Shame on me.
Nick is currently drawing this. I wrote a 12-pager for Wonder Woman 750.
Fun.
That's kind of, and I told her this when I sent her the script. I said, "This is basically a great big Valentine to you."
That's adorable.
It was basically me writing a script that I was like, I just want Nicola to have fun drawing this little story. And she sent me some pages so far, and that makes me so happy. And then, it's back to work on Black Magic, and then hopefully come about summer, we should be coming out with the next arc. And the goal is to get through the next 10 issues, on a regular schedule. And that'll take us through sort of the second act of the story.
And how long's the Wonder Woman story that you're doing?
It's a 12-pager.
Oh, that's great. There you go. Hilarious.
Yeah, it's a sweet
That's
little
excellent,
story.
man. I just talked to Orlando about what he's doing with Wonder Woman and stuff, and he's kicking ass, man. It's a good book. Yeah.
Very cool. That's always good to hear.
There you go. Well, dude, as always, I mean, we spent a good 2 hours here.
And you'll edit it down to a reasonable 45 minutes, I trust. So,
Bullshit. Every word, son. Are you kidding? Well, like I said, we're leading off with the mechanical typewriter extension for everyone's laptop. Dude.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody needs a
and truly, man, thank you so much for being a guy that's been, kicking me in the ass about the Word Balloon book, because I really have made some good strides in the last couple of weeks to get back on the project, and it's going well, and I'm very happy about it.
I'm really glad to hear
hey,
that.
man, again, I appreciate your and also thank you for being a significant part of the League of Word Balloon listeners and your backing of Word Balloon in that way too.
Of course,
no, it means a lot, man, and it truly everything, Greg. Goddamn, you took care of Brian when he was sick. You and Jen certainly did, took care of me when I was sick as well. And as always, I really appreciate that, and I love your guys' friendship. It was so great to see, even briefly. And I know you were, like an expected, father in the old days, kind of waiting in the waiting room because you couldn't, as you said. I mean, it's kind of an extension of your involvement in Stumptown and everything. Although they certainly had you working hard, promoting the hell out of it all during Rose City and everything.
Yeah, and more than happy to do it. I mean, got to figure it's the least I can do.
Yeah, man.
So.
No, it was even, like I said, even 5 minutes seeing you and seeing Jen, and of course, and Brian and I talked about it on the podcast that Friday night when when I accidentally walked in on the Skull session.
Yes, that was
that was great.
It is, yeah, definitely kind of crazy.
Well, dude, as always, my pleasure, and thank you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you,
buddy,
John.
and truly, continued success, and we'll reconvene in a couple months, and we'll do another Rucka debrief.
Lovely. You take care of yourself.
Okay, Greg Rucka, he's back, and really happy to have had this conversation with him. And like I said, just fleeting moments in Portland. He was so busy with all the Stumptown publicity and stuff. I barely got to talk to him and Jen Van Meter, his wonderful wife. I adore that couple. They're just sweetheart people. And same goes with Fraction and Kelly Sue. The only guy I really got to spend any real time with, and that's because he let me live with him for 5 days, was Bendis. Good Lord. The thing that wouldn't leave. That means me. It was a great trip, and I like I said, upon reflection, next time I'm going to go when it's a down week and everybody's got more time to hang out, because I'm like, oh, and I was leaving on Sunday night, and it's like, oh, Matt and Kelly Sue are having a party, post convention party Sunday night. I'm like, I'm going to be on a plane. I'm going to miss that too, man. So I got to see my Portland friends and make a better trip for upon reflection next time. But I hope you enjoyed this this Portland visit with Stumptown's own Greg Rucka and a new Rucka debrief on today's Word Balloon. All brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners and their support via Patreon. Thank you greatly, League, for your support. You're keeping the lights here on the Word Balloon Batcave. I'm not kidding when I say that. It means a lot, and I appreciate how much you enjoy the show and want to support it through subscribing to Word Balloon via Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon, or click on the Patreon ad at wordballoon.com. But thank you greatly for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. And man, I've been going through the list of all the great books that are coming out this month from Aftershock. And no lie, great stuff. I'm telling you, Dark Red from Tim Seeley and Corin Howell. Also, Dark Arc After the Flood continues with Cullen Bunn and Juan Doe. Bad reception from Juan Doe as well. Animosity from Marguerite Bennett and Elton Thomas is the regular book number. Issue 25 is going to drop this month. And in the meantime, Marguerite and Raphael de la Tour's collection of Year 2 is available in a nice, big, huge collection. Another great collection out, the third arc of Baby Teeth from Donny Cates and Gary Brown. You've also got the Rough Riders Complete Series hardcover, which is a big, huge 3-arc collection, the entire Rough Riders saga that Adam Glass and Pat Olaf were able to put together. And then you've got things like You Are Obsolete from Matthew Klickstein and Midnight Vista from Elliot Royale, and Shoppers Will Be Liquidated from Patrick Kindon. Just some of the great books that are waiting for you right now at Aftershock Comics. Don't take my word for it. Go to their website, find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on how to order these books through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening to Word Balloon. More great stuff coming next week. Have a great weekend with these conversations. If you didn't see it, Andrew Gaska, a great conversation about his work writing illustrated novels of Planet of the Apes, Buck Rogers, the Gil Gerard Aaron Gray continuity of Buck Rogers, and Space 1999. Really great illustrated novels. They're smart, they're fun. He commissioned incredible artists to do illustrations for the Apes books, and he also went back and got a lot of old Space 1999 art to use in the new books as well. And his Buck Rogers stuff is amazing. Can't recommend it enough. Listen to this conversation with Andrew Gasca, also released today on Word Balloon. Until next time, thanks for listening. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.